Namaste. This is going to be Nehru's foreign policy, and I put down where I'm going to go. The thrust of the today's talk is disaster. So every single point that we are going to discuss reveal the disaster and the pain that is still going on and will never go away. What we lost and we continue to lose. So I can start shrinking boundaries. So to begin with, we gave about half of the 1/3 of the territory to Pakistan. And then somehow or other outmaneuvering us, and the intervention of United Nations, intervention of the British people, they took another chunk of this, and then they annexed Balochistan. So now, later on, I'll show you the map where we ended up. So almost 1/4 of Kashmir we have. And yet this is called disputed territory, not ours. So this is in the negotiations, just to build up the shrinking boundaries. The Security Council mentioned, in fact, the United States at that time indicated that Security Council has no power of administrating a territory or making a government there. And the second thing is that the United Nations Charter says that such recommendations cannot be made or imposed because India has a legal jurisdiction. Just like the other 560 kingdoms, this too was ceded completely, irrevocably, unconditionally. So Nehru single-handedly created the bifurcation of Kashmir in two parts. One part he gave to Pakistan, the other was given to Sheikh Abdullah, who then became, now this is the important point, who then became Prime Minister of J&K. You see, we have two Prime Ministers since then. One is of India and the other is of Jammu Kashmir. And it created, with special status, privileges. There was a point in 2006 when almost 90% of the budget meant for all the states was going to J&K. In fact, in the pockets of the three families, they were ruling alternately. So that one mistake has not been rectified. In spite of the fact that the Article 370 has removed the special privileges, but still the damage is done. Whoever is Hindu in a government service, in the banks, they are afraid for their life. At any time they are being attacked. So the attacks have not stopped. The Pandits have not gone back. And there is really no assurance from anybody that they will ever be getting back. There are some indication and suggestions that there should be a military kind of garrisons, and that is where we make the houses to welcome the Pandits back. But it is still in the talking and rumor stage. So somebody in the parliament later on said this in Hindi, "Ek lamhe ki khata thi, sadiyon ka guna ban gaya." It was just one moment, the mistake, and it became forever. Sadiyon. I mean, not just this century, but for the next centuries, it became a sin hanging down our throat. Now, the next thing he did, Nehru, he said that we don't have to build an army. Why? because most of the Muslim and Indian armies have gone back. And why should we need an army? And anybody who suggested that 40% of the defense forces have already been given to Pakistan according to the agreement, and many Muslims who were in the Indian army went and joined Pakistan, moved there and joined. So we really have a very small army and few airplanes which are in a bad condition. And practically it is there's nothing. So every time the generals went there, pleading for funds, pleading for shoes, pleading for ammunitions, and Nehru insulted in front of everybody. In fact, one of them went, and these are high-ranking people, he rebuked and asked him to leave. So this is how his mentality was. And he rebuked the Defense Department. Anytime Defense Department provided some budget for the military, the Minister of Defense, he rejected. He believed that peaceful nations need no army. Now, where are the peaceful nations? That is the point. Okay. And he said, no one attacks non-violent countries. This again, even when Pakistan had already attacked you within the first 3 months, not even 3 months, and you are hanging on to an illusion that no violent country is ever attacked. These are the kind of attitudes. In fact, he had totally disconnect with everything. He had no idea of what is required to govern the country, what is diplomacy, what is the vision for uniting the country and keeping it united. And making a cohesive nation properly valued culturally. Culturally, it was already, pretty well knit. But then due to certain policies, it started showing fault lines, which were magnified by the government policies. So Defense Department did not give one look at the 3 wings of the army. So now we come to major events. Nepal, the king, he said that historically we are united with India. In fact, the most ancient name for Nepal was Uttarpat. If you read the Mahabharata, it shows Uttarpat. And when Gautam Buddha was born, even at that time, it was not known as Nepal, even though the language was existing there, which was not just in Nepal, but Magad and Bihar and Bengal. That language was called Pali. From there onwards, it became a separate kingdom. But it took a long time for that to happen, several millennia. But Nehru declined the offer. So why? He said, it will give the impression that we are expansionist and we are an imperialist nation. And then he said, what will the world think about us? What will the world think about us? That you are a pack of fools. That is how history judges you. History does not judge you because you have certain ideals and beliefs. It judges you only by the consolidation, how you ruled, how you consolidated the country, how you protected the country, how you sustained development. History judges you by those achievements. But then he had complete ignorance of Indian history. Complete. He did not know the geography of the subcontinent. He did not the treaties enacted in the past. In fact, the treaties which were given over as part of, historical idea to give Nehru to build on, even that he did not give a look. And that is where the disaster started occurring right away. So Nepal's history for the past 3 millennia that is known since Mahabharata, it hasn't changed. It has still been part. It was bifurcated and separated by the British themselves. So till that time, it was part of Indian subcontinent. Now, Panchashir. The two main ingredients, the conditions were neutrality. All the nations who join Panchashir non-aligned nations, and newly freed nations who do not want imperialism, they will be neutral and they will be non-violent. I don't think anybody put down their weapons in a warehouse, except probably, Nehru himself. So this is, somebody has written, if you are neutral, actually not somebody. In Balram says in Mahabharata, at the juncture when the war was going to happen, and Shri Balram said, I am neutral. And that is when Shri Krishna said, if you are neutral in situations of adharam, injustice, you have chosen the side of oppressor. These kind of things are actually the building blocks. These kind of quotes are building blocks of diplomacy and war. When is war absolutely essential, and when war can be avoided? And then there are separate guidelines. Of course, Nehru had no clue. He was not aware of that. He boasted that I am the last Englishman to rule over the country. I don't think anybody can swallow this kind of thing. But then at that time, the establishment did. Because if you don't agree with him, you are out. And then you are surrounded by your sycophants. And they are just yes people. Relation with the United States, USSR. He was a communist. In his own words, he acknowledged that he is idyllic and he believes in communism. Eventually, we'll go the Russian path. So since he himself said it, Russia started gaining ground from ambassador, spies, influencers, those who do some propaganda here and there and brainwash the establishment. And they started penetrating right away because they knew the background of Nehru. And Nehru had a very superficial idea about how Russia was governed. He was shown the best part, you see. So his image was very different. Relation with United States. You see, United States was willing to be having relations with India. Actually, in the initial 3 years, United States was on the side of India as far as Kashmir was concerned. But then, once Nehru visited, at that time, Truman was the president, and he had, dove on his hand. When he went to meet the president, he had dove in his hand, and he was looking wistfully. There's a picture. I did not get the copyright for that picture, but the picture shows that he's standing next to with that dove in his hand. And Truman looked at him and he thought that this is the leader of the subcontinent. And he thought, he was talking about nonviolence and mutual help and development and this and that, modernization. But then the dumb business was irritating to Truman. So gradually, United States found out that its interest does not lie with India, and it became unknowingly, unwittingly, Nehru brought India in the middle of Cold War. You see, now there are clearly a camp. India is not neutral; it is leaning with USSR, and United States is in a separate camp. So this became a kind of world order, and India was drawn not as a neutral country, but as a part of Russia. India was offered permanent seat in the United Nations twice. Twice he was offered. First, as soon as India became independent in the next 2 years, he was offered that. And Nehru said, no, we don't want to be part of the United Nations. Okay? We don't want the permanent seat. No one can fathom this. Why? In the meantime, Pakistan joined every alignment. Every kind of treaty organization, they joined the South Asian Treaty Organization, the Central Asian, Central and Eastern nations. They joined everything, whatever they were offered, because they wanted to be recognized as an independent voice on the international stage. We don't have any voice. Where do we belong? This side or this side, or where? Hanging somewhere. Liaquat Ali Pak. This is another diplomatic maneuver. Liaquat Ali said that we should have a written agreement that we won't have any population exchange. Okay. And Nehru took it in good faith. Yes, we will not send the Muslims out. And Liaquat Ali, we knew that they were already killing Hindus there, and ethnic cleansing was going on. And nobody believed in Liaquat Ali's promise, just as nobody believed in Jinnah's promise. But Nehru did. And he convinced himself and everybody that this is in our best interest. And now reversing the nomenclature. You see, nomenclature is that India suddenly became a suspect, and Pakistan becomes an ally. And officially, it was not the member of NATO. Unofficially, America said that Pakistan is part of NATO, which means that the treaty says any time that there is an attack on one nation in NATO, it will be considered attack on all the nations. So that is one of the things to be highlighted, because this became the basis for America to jump in every time there was an unprovoked attack by Pakistan on India, and America was on the side of Pakistan. A neutral person is always a suspect. You are looking at him, is he going to be with me when I need, or is he going to be with my enemy if there is a conflict of interest? So neutral person is a suspect. In fact, in the situation of global geopolitics, either you are a ally or you are an enemy. There is no such thing as neutral. You see, it's like a game of chess. there are two players. You can have two teams, but you cannot have three players in that. It's meant to be just two players. So, but these are all part of diplomacy, and Nehru had no clue of that. He refused to join the international community of allies. I think this is the same one. Non-recognition of Israel. So this is another major disaster on the diplomatic front. Why don't we recognize Israel? We have Jews in India for several hundred years, several centuries, and why wouldn't we recognize their independence? But no, they recognize Palestine to appease the Muslims. And now this is why this discussion is important, because this is laying down the footprints of the framework for which the other prime ministers are going to follow, and other governments, subsequent governments in India are going to remain in that straitjacket. Every time they have to pass a law, they have to first think, how does it affect the Muslims? What will the Muslim do? What is going to be their reaction? So the whole mindset got perverted. In every controversial decision, they had to think of the Muslims. So this non-recognition of Israel had great repercussions. You see, we were wondering why the Jews are in charge of, own most of the international media. At least 40 years back, all the major news channels and radio stations and these publishing houses, many of them were owned by the Jews. And whoever owns the communication channels, the platform, they create the narrative. And the narrative became extremely damaging on the world platform. And who created this? Non-recognition of Israel that resulted in that hostile opinion of the Jews from all over the world. And they are scattered all over the world. Now, Modi did the best thing, that as soon as he was sworn in, the first thing he did was that he recognized Israel. And since then, they are good friends. Okay. Now, relations with Maoist China. This is very interesting. Somehow or other, Nehru thought that there are other 25 nations, small nations, like Kenya, newly freed nations of Africa, some of the Asian small countries, Sri Lanka, they joined the non-alignment pact. And he was very happy. Now, the crucial thing was that he wanted China to join non-aligned. Well, China would not do that. China was at that time thinking, where are his interests? And this is a communist government which was on war path with everybody. And they kicked out their own established government, which is now Taiwan. And then Nehru is bending backward and forward in order to get the Panchashil, the non-alignment treaty, signed. And then he offered to his ambassador to China. He said, you know what you can do, make them the offer in case they don't sign and they are adamant, then give them Minsar. Minsar is the place where most of the pilgrimages of India are there. That is the area a little bigger than Haryana, and then adjacent areas. Uh, Lake Mansarovar is there, Mount Kailash is there. They are historically ours. China cannot claim it. In 1946, there was a movie, and I remember there was a song. Mukesh sings it. Moti chugne gai re hansi, Mansarovar par. So Mansarovar was a very important place. Same was the case with Mount Kailash, where they used to have parikrama, and it was the ultimate goal of Indians to make a pilgrimage there. So this area is Minsar. Now, what is the history of Minsar? Once upon a time, it was part of Tibet, but because it attracted so many tourists and pilgrims, Tibet gave it to Ladakh, and it became part of Ladakh in the sense that they will get the revenue from the pilgrims and facilitate the trade and help the pilgrims by making shelters and inns. And that was a very mutually agreeable situation. Ladakh was given control of Minsar and the right to collect taxes. And when Ladakh became part of Kashmir, actually it was part of Kashmir all the time. Obviously, Kingdom of Kashmir included Minsar. Now, this part about Minsar, no one knows, no one ever talked about it. When I saw the documents about Tibetan invasion and what was the situation about Minsar, I was amazed that this is something like, our pilgrimage site, and it is being gifted away without anybody's knowledge. To this day, no law was presented. The treaty was not discussed in the parliament. Parliament did not know about it, except Krishna Menon and probably one other sycophant. Except 3 or 4 persons, nobody knew. It was he assured Krishna Menon that yes, it will be passed by parliament, but he never presented, and nobody ever bothered. So, as if this is his, he is the king, and he has the right. He's not the king; he is actually the owner of India, because India is given on the platter to the Congress, and he is the leader of the Congress. So, this kind of attitude has trickled down to his dynasty. All those. What are we going to do now? It doesn't matter what the interest of the nation is or boundaries of the nations are and how to protect them. We can do whatever with India that we feel like. So these foundations are laid down by none other than Nehru. And of course, we blame Gandhi too. So Nehru arbitrarily abandoned all Indian colonial rights. Now, the British said that whatever is in the subcontinent not given to Pakistan belongs to you. And you can use them either to ask them to join you, or you can just assert your colonial rights, because this area was governed by the British. So, but then he abandoned that principle. And then just before that, there was a sudden attack on Tibet in 1950. A lot of brutalities, destruction of temples, monasteries. Surprisingly, American interest was not there, but India, it was a buffer zone between China, Mongolia on this side, Soviet Union. This was a buffer state extending from east to west, a very large territory. If you know the geography of that, uh, one can find it where it is. But no one came to the help of those poor lamas. Um India at least agreed, Nehru agreed that okay, the Dalai Lama can come, some other people can come, and they can settle in Himachal Pradesh. And they are there. They make their monasteries and they continue there. But the point is disgust. One feels really disgusted. The purpose of knowing one's history, there is one purpose that from the other people's mistakes over the centuries, we gain experience. We, just as you learn from your parents' mistakes, you learn also from the developments in the historical narrative, what had really happened, and we become wiser by that. You learn some lessons, you learn what could have been done better. So, surprisingly, India never learned any lesson. Ecuador, a tiny country, if you look at the map of the world, it's not even a quarter of an inch on the globe. And yet, that tiny country had the guts to make a protest resolution in the United Nations. They took the case, and almost 120 countries at that time, there were only that many, they agreed that it should be discussed. Resolution should be initiated and discussed. And guess who opposed it? Nehru and the British opposed it. British opposed it for the reason and that they thought that China is better than Russia coming there. And they never trusted Nehru to begin with. Why Nehru did not oppose? Nobody can understand that part, except that he was foolish. He did not understand that we always need a buffer zone. You see, there are Chanakya made a very nice chart that the king is surrounded, a country is surrounded by allies, and then they are surrounded by those who are a little suspect as far as whether they are allies or not allies, and you keep an eye on that. And then there is, you create a buffer zone where you think that we are safe. That's our safety zone. You see, like cantonment area, it is actually a safety zone. So that is what the position of Tibet was. And then illegal transfer of oxygen and areas occupied by Pakistan, that itself was done knowingly. The question of McMahon line. Many people do not know what is McMahon line. This line was created a long time back when China was divided in several small little warlords, small kingdoms, tiny kingdoms, and they were always fighting with each other. It was more like tribal kind of setup, very unstable. And at that time, it was agreed that by the British, with some warlord in neighboring just above Tibet, that this is the line. You are not going beyond that. Beyond that is Himalayas, and this is our area at that time, British India. So historically, Himalayas was always part of India. So the Asian plate is China, and the Indian plate, which bumped into Asia, naturally Himalayas emerged, and that is part of the Indian subcontinent. So the history of the earth or the evidence of the McMahon line, one may say either way, it is part of India. So the warning signs of Chinese aggression are there when they attacked Tibet. But then Nehru still wanted to be friend with China. They started changing the maps. So the parts which were like just above Sikkim, Bhutan, south of the McMahon line, they gradually occupied. And when India showed that, your maps are wrong, you are showing 120,000 square kilometers of Indian territory as Chinese. So somebody questioned China, and China said, yeah, we made some mistakes. We should rectify. They never rectified, and India never asked again, as if the matter is shelved. So today, the map of the world shows the entire area of 120,000 square kilometers as part of Ladakh, as part of China. So that is where the mistakes, blunders, combined with buffoonery and total lack of knowledge of the geography come into that is where the foundation of India were in 2014. That the Congress is free to give in anything because there is a precedence. It has been done before, we can do it again. And before 2014, Manmohan Singh tried 3 times to give Siachen Glacier to China, demilitarize it, which means naturally China will walk in. And 3 times it was defeated by the parliament. The army protested. So I remember a line by Chanakya. And he was actually walking with Chandragupta as a child. Chandragupta was a child, and they were walking through the fields going to Takshila. And then Chanakya saw an ankush, a wheat, which was a prickly kind of weed. And immediately Chanakya bent down and pulled up the weed and another weed next to it. And Chandragupta questioned that, why did you do that? Why are we clearing the field? He says, if one thorn remains, one weed remains in the field, what will happen? The whole field will be taken over by the weeds. I mean, these are the things that I learned when I joined the administrative service. Not that the academy taught us, I learned myself that how to control people and how to maneuver yourself when you are on a tight spot. But then, till this day, they don't know about Chanakya, and nobody is teaching even today. Then the war of 1962, Chinese incursion, and India ignored. And gradually they started chipping here, chipping there, and they ignored. China actually kept testing the waters, that how far we can go. You see, now if you look at the present history of United States, China is exactly doing the same thing. Let's try this. What is their reaction? When will we be successful? Then let's try this. Let's try this. Now here, now in Iran, now in Arabian Sea, now in the South Pacific. Exactly the same strategy they started in 1949. And that is when it became a communist country. So as soon as it became a communist country, This was their strategy. 100 years of engaging in war. There is a book there. So China kept testing the waters. Army was ordered, some small little regiments were there guarding the so-called border, but they were asked that you never attack. You are not going to attack unless you have to defend yourself. How can you win a war like that? When you are waiting for the others to attack with hands down, you are conquered. They are not saying that we are coming after you. They are simply going to attack you. And at that time, you are looking at each other that are we going to defend ourselves? Would it be considered first attack? You see, these are some of the things that makes a person very sad. India's unpreparedness was revealed. They did not have shoes, they did not have weapons, and on top of that, there was no air defense provided. Even though the defense minister said that we should give them air defense, because those poor people are not prepared for a war. That also in the snows. And that was winter. I still remember 1962. It was around Diwali that China gave us the present. So on this, and then there was the general RN call. That was interesting part. I met a person who is retired from Indian Army. I met him in Boston. His father fought the war in 1962. And he was narrating to me. I said, I'm writing the history of that part. And he gave me links. He also told me verbally the story. He said, General R.N. Call was asked to make a visit when the fight was going on. He went there and just looking at the bloodshed, he felt sick. He retreated, came back, and he said to Nehru that I am going to be in the hospital because I'm sick. And they say in the army people started joking around that the general is directing the war from the hospital room. He's too sick at the sight of the bloodshed. So, and this film, Hakikat, if you have not seen it, please see it because it is Hakikat. So it's parts of it are actually the actual events. Now, after the defeat, Nehru was heartbroken. Well, he felt that it is a betrayal because 1954, Nehru was entertaining Chow En-lai and they were signing treaty, bhai sort of things. And Nehru really was heartbroken. But then he still considered that it should not go to United Nations. We are going to give this area to China. So then when the parliament question came that why are we giving this to China uncontested and why are we giving up? His answer was, who cares about that area? Not even a blade of grass grows there. And one of the MPs, he took off his turban and she said, nothing grows here. Should I get rid of my head? So most people knew that this is what he's doing is foolishness. And then at that point again, America offered permanent seat because they realized that China is a very dangerous country. It's a closed economy. At that time, it was a closed economy. America had no trade or anything. They had trade with Taiwan, and they recognized Taiwan as a legitimate country, as China. So uh, again, they offered the seat, and again, Nehru refused. So this is a foolishness has no bounds. Now here we are. This map I showed last time in the context of Kashmir, and now this is Siachen Glacier. This is what China is aiming at because it has some of the heights are so high, some of the peaks are so high, it gives the advantage to the whoever is attacking to kill people down below. And China realized that we cannot be in the valley. We must conquer the peaks. So, but luckily we still have that area. And this area was transferred by Pakistan illegally. First of all, you are occupying Kashmir, and then you are giving part of it. This is illegal. You are still called POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and then you are giving it away to China as a goodwill gesture. Well, and this is the area that they gained all this after the war, and even before the war by chipping. So now diplomacy versus idyllic stupor. Actually, there is something else happened. In 1962, Nehru sent the ambassador to Kennedy. At that time, he was the president. And he said that, please give us some help. We are in a bad shape. Russia at that time was friendly with India, quite friendly, but they would not go against another communist country. So they were neutral. Where did the non-alignment partners go? They were nowhere. Nobody condemned the attack. Nobody took care of it. Nobody helped. And nobody had any sympathy also for us. So Kennedy said only 2 sentences. He says, we fought a 7 years war, a world war, and we sacrificed. Now it is your turn. You sacrifice, settle with among yourselves. And we are not going to lift a finger. I mean, in other words, we are not going to lift a finger. Now that thing of thorns, we did not remove any, did not notice any. And now they are taking over parts of Bhutan, parts of Sikkim, especially the peaks around Doklam. That is the contentious area now. So the war which started in 1962 never ended. It's an ongoing war, and China is somehow or other winning. Modi is trying his very best somehow to contain them and push them back a little bit. He has succeeded, but a whole lot of preparation, diplomacy, goodwill of other countries, help of neighbors, not with weapons, but with the in diplomatic on diplomatic front. But then at that time, nobody cared. So Nehru was trapped in his ideals with the Dao and the Panchashil and the whole nonsense. What is Rajya Dharma? This is something India is not learning, not teaching their administrators. That there is something called Niti, policy, setting the policy. Raj Dharma has 4 parts. One is protection of boundaries. Second is protection of the citizens against lawlessness. The third is to maintain allies and keep your options open. You see, in fact, as far back as Mahabharata, Vidur says that when you enter a house or a castle, always make sure there is an exit door that you can come out alive from there. This is the mandate of Rajya Dharma. So, and then besides these two duties, you are going to consolidate your military and make sure that you have large treasury. Many people say that, Hindus are otherworldly and they shun the earth part, the economy and money. That's not true. Chanakya reiterated the same thing. He said in Arthashastra, he said, Sukham Moolam Dharmam. What is the origin of comfort? Dhan. Dhanam Moolam Artha. How do you maintain that dharma? By collecting money. You fight for dharma and you need money. And then he says, Arthasya Moolam Rajyam. In order to protect the treasury, you need a king. And then he says that the king has to be Indriyaja. He should be having control on his senses. He should be well-read and should have a balanced head and vision. So this is the Sanskrit quote from Arthashastra. Confucius said the same thing 2,500 years back, 2,200. You have to call things by their proper names. If you are not calling that, using the proper names, what are we doing? We are actually mislabeling, categorizing wrong things, and we are living in an illusion. Actually, we are delusional. So, if there are people who are traitors in the country, and you say no, they have freedom of speech, and freedom of speech does not mean that you destroy the country. You see, Constitution does not say that you start a revolution or bifurcation of the country. So we are naming them wrongly. In India, we are calling Muslims as peaceful. Another delusion. Then we are calling Hindus saffron brigade, as if we are a regiment organized. Whereas a common Hindu, normal Hindu, 90% have not seen a weapon or possessed a weapon. So we have to categorize, is that person, country, ally, friend, foe, or competitor? And we have to name them accordingly, proper names. Ally, friend, foe, competitor. And if you confuse, then you are nowhere. You have defeated, betrayed your nation and defeated the country. And that is important to know, because what applies to India also applies to other democracies. And it is happening, I think, in the United States to some extent, where the nomenclature is so mixed up that we don't know who is our friend and who is our ally, who is our competitor, who is our enemy. Having said that, this is the thought for today. for the next generation who has to shape the things um, on the in their own country, on the global stage, and they have to chalk out their own uh, stronghold. That if this ladder collapse, is there another step that I can take? Thank you very much. I hope I gave you some knowledge about past follies and blunders. Any question? Okay. All right.
Yeah, if there are any questions, then please feel free to unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
Kamlesh, I have a question. Are you able to hear me, please?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yeah, okay. Like during independence, Indians participated in many of the events. Most of them fought for it. Some of them sacrificed. Like, what is the reason behind after independence, when Gandhiji and Nehruji were allowed to do the blunders they did? Why did where the has attitude of the Indians changed after independence? Why couldn't they notice that both of them are causing huge damage to the country? Like, I just wanted to know, like, people who were very active politically before independence, what happened to them after that? Why couldn't we as the public couldn't do anything about the blunders Gandhiji and Nehruji did?
I really wonder, after 13 sessions, we still are calling Gandhi Ji and Nehru Ji.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It just it is into my habit. I don't give any respect to both of them. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
That's fine. Gandhi was a con artist, and Nehru was arrogant fool. Okay. Now the smoke screen you are talking about, why there is that nobody knew. Nobody knew exactly what they were doing. The underhand game that he was playing, Gandhi was playing to keep the Muslims and keep Hyderabad under Muslim control as a separate country, nobody knew. Only 3 or 4 of his people knew. And Indians were too ecstatic in a euphoria that India gained independence. India did not gain anything. India was not independent. Interim government was established. Transfer of power did happen. And Nehru was still owing allegiance to the Queen of England. At that time, the King of England. So, okay. And in the book, I have given that. And people absolutely had no clue. You see, these are the days of social media. Previously, we had the decades when there was radio channels and newspapers. If you stop the newspapers, right, and not that Hindus read the newspapers, they just glance over the headline and ho gaya. Let us move on to the business as usual. So this is the condition. Plus, there were blackouts. You see, as I mentioned, that when Rajendra Prasad gave a speech at Somnath, Doordarshan was asked to block it, play something else. And Indira Gandhi did the same thing. For 4 days, there was no news. In fact, she cut off the electricity of that area, wherever the newspaper headquarters were there, when she declared the emergency and started arresting. So with this kind of thing, the revolution from below cannot come. And first of all, revolution from below comes only when people realize that we are in a very pathetic situation. Hindu never thought that. You see, that's for refugees. They never realize that we are in a bad position or worse condition or anything. So that is why you see, ignorance gives birth to illusion. So ignorance of the happenings made us feel complacent and gave us the illusion that everything is fine and we don't have to do anything at our level. That mentality still persists. That mentality still persists. We are not able to unite as a community. We have social gatherings where each is trying to see whether I can impress others or not. And I have said it several times. Next question. Okay. Who are you?
Kamaleshi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Kamaleshi, this is Raman Nandi.
Anji.
No, I have a question about, how is the diplomacy between India and USA with respect to the Kashmir issues and the Bangladesh issue?
Bangladesh, are you talking about before Modi or after Modi?
No, right now at this time.
At this point, things are shaping up. Diplomacy is much better because the first 5 years, what Modi himself is from grassroots. You see, he was not born in a Nawab's family and did not grow with luxury. So he's from the grassroots. He knows what poverty is and how to treat. So the first 5 years, he improved the global relations. That if in a tough situation, do we have friends? This is gaining allies. Every time they said that he is going on a foreign tour, he was not, he was studying. He was making friends. He was making allies. That if he has to take tough decisions against China, Pakistan, or anybody else, who is with us? Support group. So gaining allies, and he has a solid group of people who respect him and consider him one of the 10 leaders of the world, not the leader of the world, best leader of the world. So at this point, I think I'm pretty happy on the diplomatic front that we are capable of handling China's incursions or Pakistan is dying by their own misdeeds, misgovernment. And so we are in a good shape. As far as America is concerned, America doesn't know what is ahead of them. And this is a dark point where America is. And it can neither be counted as foe nor an ally. Because they are confused. They are confused about Ukraine, they are confused about Afghanistan. When they are supposed to attack Pakistan, they attacked Afghanistan. Afghanistan did not send a single terrorist to America in those planes. They were all Pakistani and poor Saudis. You see? So, and when they were supposed to attack Saudis, they attacked Iraq. So America had muddle-headed foreign policy. Part of it is that every 4 years, when the president is replaced, he brings his own coterie of advisors and bureaucracy. So it's in a, let's not count on, and I don't think Modi counts America as a friend or as a foe. He just goes day by day, but he
No.
consolidates his power.
Now, suppose, Kamalaji, suppose India now says that Pak-occupied Kashmir belongs to us, and we will occupy that. So, in that situation, or China-occupied Kashmir is our, part of our country, and we want to, we want to occupy that. So,
Not bother about the position of USA. It may come to our help by words or not. It does not count. At this point, India does not need United States. What India needs is the support of Asian countries, Middle East, and good relations, reasonably good relations with Europe. So he has done with Australia, Japan, everybody. In fact, I was reading 18 countries have accepted to acknowledge rupee as the currency of trade. Otherwise, it used to be dollar. And that was another diplomatic front America had started. The stick that you dollar exchange, you have deficit, we will take this much of your territory because you are delinquent. So we got rid of dollar. Keep your dollars. Russia will pay in rupees. Japan will pay in rupees. Almost 18 countries have agreed. 26 are on the point of agreeing. So why India needs America? You see?
So in that case, Kamalaji, we can claim, we can put our claim for the Pak occupied and China occupied Kashmir. And
India has a claim. Whether they are going to exercise this winter or the next winter, because the global changes are going on, and probably there will be a third world war. Therefore, nobody is putting hands in another fire. So watching the situation. But army says, Indian army says that if we go to POK, we'll just walk over. And POK itself is fed up with Pakistan. They want to join. So, okay, let's go to some other person. Yes, RKG.
Thank you, Kamalaji. Thank you. A lot of people have that thing in their mind anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Who else raising hand? Satendra Kumarji.
Namaste. I just want to know that when all this disaster of Chinese war happened, after it, what was whether Nehru faced any real oppositions within his party or from the political leaders at that time? And it amazes me that despite all this fiasco, there was a huge procession, funeral procession. He finally expired. So, what was the situation? Whether he faced any real opposition? What was the reaction of the intellectuals and political leaders at that point of time? Are they still supporting him, justifying him, or he really faced some solid criticism at that point of time?
Okay, two things. The parliament did not know much of it, and they were not interested. And Krishna Menon was completely going whatever Nehru said. And they did not present the real situation that was happening to the parliament. So that is one. Unpreparedness is because of that, because the parliament didn't know. And people, even today, they don't know what's going on day-to-day basis. You see? So I know it because I was in administration. Plus, I met with people who were in the army. Even recently, I met one person in Boston, as I said, and he gave me a huge material. I included in the book part of it. And second thing, that I learned diplomacy as one of the first 20 women to be in charge of, to be administrator and no, men are not your friends, and your lower staff is not your friend. So you have to be learn diplomacy. How do you avoid the situation? And if you can't avoid it, how to get out of it? You see, it is the same thing as Chakravyuh. That if you are going into that, you have to know, how to come back. So, and if you are suddenly finding yourself, Indian did not know about it. There was no opposition at that time. The first time there was opposition, that was when after 1971, when Jan Sangh and Janata Dal, they came out. Otherwise, there was no opposition. And as far as education and professors and intellectuals, they were either communists, brainwashed, secularists. So, and secularists, I remember in Calcutta when Hakikat was released, the communist in Calcutta, they burnt the theater. They banned the movie to be, and they have changed the names of their ancient names of streets. Lenin Sarni. Now, what is Lenin Sarni? And Maoist, Mao Road, like that. I could not believe when I looked at the map. So you see, you can't blame the people. And the media was controlled by, media was not there. And people were not even interested. Even myself, we had implicit faith in Nehru. And in the last time I went session, I mentioned that I cried almost for 3 hours when Jawaharlal died. What will happen to India? You see, so at least my idea now is that most of those things happen because Indians and Hindus especially, they do not know where their own interest lies because they don't read and they are not inquisitive. And please be inquisitive. And if you say that you don't like history, it's boring. It's boring because you don't want to, you have turned your channels off. Otherwise, why not? Why not learn from the mistakes of others? I think during the writing of this book, and even talking with you people, I have become more mature in all of these matters that I can convey better from experience. In 1962, we were in Missouri at that time. And from Missouri, 7,000 feet high, we used to say, ask each other which of the peak they are fighting now, not knowing anything about anything. Okay. Who else? Pradeepji? Mr. Khosla, you want to go? The hand is up. Whose hand is that? Okay, Pradeepji.
Yep, actually, it was a really good, observation. And yeah, I was looking at the history. I'm a, a reader of history and religion. So Nehru was just, one of the rulers of Hindustan who made blunders. It goes back, thousands of years. Prithviraj Chauhan was a dumb ruler. He didn't know any Raj Dharma or Rajniti. And many others, followed him. So overall, it was like a total lack of political science, duties of a king, duties of a ruler to citizens and the country. So that has been, for at least 1,000 years. After, I believe, Harshvardhan, there was not any such a great ruler who really thought about the politics. They were living in a day-to-day world and thinking about just, ending up, like a great ruler, trying to, make peace by dividing the country, giving away land to others, and accommodating almost everybody, intruders, invaders, whosoever were there. So it was like, for at least 1,000 years, this whole mess has been going on. And Nehru probably learned pretty well from British that he has just to live his life with women, with luxury, and pleasing everybody, pleasing himself. And he was not a ruler for a country, or he didn't even think about the country. So that has been going on. He was supported by the uneducated and unthinking population, mostly of Hindus. And it is unbelievable that seeing partition, seeing blunders in 62, 71, and then still Hindus, kept voting for, Congresses and communists. So it is, sad story.
It is sad. It is sad. And Nehru's laid down the foundation of dynasty in 1944 when he asked Mahatma Gandhi that you give the name to Indira Gandhi and not Khan, because one day no one will accept her as a prime minister if she is Muslim. You see, so 1944, he knew he is going to be the first prime minister, and he knew that he is going to start a dynasty. And we are now in the days of social media and everything. Still, there are some 200 people hanging around with Rahul Gandhi as if he's the greatest genius born. And Rajiv Gandhi, I saw the list of playgrounds, stadiums, railway stations, institutions, schools, colleges, you name it. The list was 9 pages long, which are named after these 3 people: Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and Nehru, and many Gandhi. So these 4 people, they occupy as if they were the best players, they were the best in knowledge, and they were college graduates or intelligentsia contributions. It is shameful. And those people who were really dangerous and could have done something for the country, the British knew them. You see, this Churchill said that placate Gandhi, keep him out of danger. We don't want a civil war there, a revolution. So keep him safe. Not a single time these people were ever under lathi charge. And they never suffered. And when Gandhi actually observed the fast, he was in seclusion. Nobody knew what he's eating and drinking. Okay. The only time when he was fasting and he was in the Birla house, in view of everybody, it did not last more than 2 days. You see, so this whole business of these were charlatans, ruffians. They knew the art of conning people. And
actually, Gandhi delayed, the freedom, for some time, actually, in Chauri Chaura, and after, even, in the Navy revolt, he tried to delay the freedom.
Yeah, no, he could have done it in 1929.
Yeah, that I'm saying, yeah.
He could have really united India.
Yeah, Chauri Chaura was a turning point, actually. The mass could have revolted that time only.
Yeah.
But, things were controlled by Gandhi in favor of British.
Mopla was the first time.
Yeah, Mopla was,
He said, some people said that why are we getting embroiled about Khalifa? And Gandhi said that, freedom can wait. This is emergency. Restoring a Khalifa is an emergency who never was our Khalifa. So, and he conned. People who saw through him were Ambedkar, Patel, But Patel wanted that if he is to contribute something, he has to be with Nehru and Gandhi.
Yeah. I'm not a great believer in Ambedkar. Yeah, he was, kind of again a stooge of Britishers. So
No, he was not.
yeah, he was, also playing some way or the other way.
He was not.
Yeah.
He was an excellent person. I mean,
Yeah.
vision, and strategy and negotiation ability. These were his qualifications. Anybody else? I think that's it.
Yeah, one last question, Kamleshji. Just as a student of history, I would like to hear from you, like what actually happened to Subhash Chandra Bose? Like, how did he die?
Well, there is a lot of controversy about that. Actually, Subhash Chandra was taken by Russia. He was running from Tokyo to Russia. He was safely allowed to cross facilitated, Japan facilitated that we are now defeated, things will happen, so you get out. And in Russia, he wanted to stay incognito and then move towards Germany. But he was caught beforehand. And Stalin asked Churchill that we have Subhash Chandra Bose, what should we do? And at that time, India was still under British control, 1945. And Churchill said, keep him there. Keep him there. So, and when Gandhi and Nehru came to learn that he's alive and he's there, and they said that Nehru said to Stalin later on that make sure he stays there. So as far as I am concerned, and what I read about different books, I bought them, those books. They indicate that he died in Russia. But he was under house arrest there. He married a Russian woman. He had a child. Surprisingly, nobody is coming out. And other than his daughter, she could have shed some light. I don't know why. But many researchers did go and saw the archives, but they could not, they were not allowed to make copies of those. And there is their research indicate that he died in Russia. But they knew, Nehru knew where he was. Nobody else knew. And this is another point, that one interesting point you have raised. Since it was a very closed door secret between Nehru and Russia, so Russia used it to blackmail Nehru. Part of the reason the bureaucracy called those secret files Bose factor. So code name was Bose factor. Why we are letting the Russian people come to the bureaucrats and get a file? Because of the Bose factor. That was so interesting in the bureaucracy establishment. They knew that something is there, and Russia is blackmailing India and will continue blackmailing. Of course, things have changed. And anyway, I think it's quite long enough.
Yeah, any more question, Mr. R.K. Khosla? And your hand is up.
I know, but he's not, he's on mute. Khoslaji? Unmute karo. Please unmute yourself. No, I don't think the hand is just like that. Okay.
Yeah, he may have walked away. So yeah, we'll
He's
finish
here,
for
but
today then.
the hand, well, anybody can ask me, on that your group that you have created,
Yeah.
any questions, because everything about the book cannot be discussed in short session. I'm just creating awareness that please read the details, what really was going on.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for today.
Okay. Namaste ji. Everyone.
Namaste. Namaste.